Hello, welcome to the Voice of Rejoicing again this week. Well, I've really got something to share with you today. It's called an Accelerating One World Agenda, and this is a newsletter that I receive about 4 times a year, spring, summer, and fall, and winter. And it's by Gary Kaw, and I want to share what I have learned with you because I think every one of you that watches this is going to be very interested in what's going to be happening a year from today. Okay, now the best way for me to do this is just to read directly to you. All right. It says, for the past 18 months, we've been closely following developments at the World Health Organization, the WHO, regarding the drafting and proposed implementation of an international pandemic treaty. We first warned our readers about this devious undertaking last June, providing a summary of the organization's plans in our Summer of 2022 article entitled, Brace Yourselves. Unfortunately, this globalist health agenda has made remarkable progress since then, receiving endorsements from many of the world's leaders, including our President Joe Biden. To move things along, the 76th World Health Assembly convened in Geneva, Switzerland last month. That was May the 21st through the 30th. The goal is to get the completed document voted on and implemented in May of 2024 at their next assembly. The World Health Organization is expecting all of its member states to ratify the treaty at that time. If signed by Biden and the other world leaders, it would give the WHO, the World Health Organization, which operates under the auspices of the United Nations, exclusive authority in the event of a pandemic to impose quarantines, lockdowns, obligatory vaccinations, and vaccine passports upon the people. In response to this attempted global power grab, Mislav Kolakusic, a member of the European Parliament for Croatia, publicly declared the World Health Organization a terrorist organization. At a press conference together with Dr. Robert Malone and other seriously concerned professionals, Kolakusic voiced his firm opposition to the agenda of the World Health Organization. I would like to, and this is a quote from him, I would like to briefly make the people aware of the upcoming danger for humanity. The World Health Organization wants all countries to sign an agreement on handing over the authority to declare a pandemic, procure vaccines and drugs. It will be healthier and safer for humanity to sign an agreement with the Colombian drug cartel. They know all about drugs, for sure. According to the gatewaypundit.com, which covered Kolakusic's statements, and I'm quoting here, the Croatian parliamentarian went on to accuse the World Health Organization of disseminating lies throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. He said that the Chinese-backed organization had misled the public by initially declaring the virus as new and unknown, falsely asserting the efficacy of vaccines, and making misleading statements about their ability to protect against serious illness and death. None of this deception should have come as a surprise, given the fact that the World Health Organization's head, Tedros it's hard for me to pronounce this word. His last name is spelled Gebreyesus, was a Marxist revolutionary leader in Ethiopia, where he was responsible for massive upheaval and mayhem. The UN rewarded him by making him Director General of the World Health Organization. Socialists reward and promote other socialists. Please understand, this pandemic document, if approved, will give the World Health Organization the power to declare and manage a global pandemic emergency. Once a health emergency is declared, every person who signs, every signatory, including the United States, must submit to the authority of the WHO. This includes caving to them on treatments, lockdowns, and vaccine mandates, along with government surveillance. Reflecting on this potential reality in his article entitled, "Why is the U.S. Relinquishing National Sovereignty to a Globalist Dictatorship?" Jim Garlow of Well-Versed Ministry writes, and I quote here, "But you say this cannot happen without the consent of our Congress, right? Wrong. It is happening now. But wait, you say, only the Senate can approve a treaty, right? Yes, but Biden has done a runaround, an end run as they call it in sports, not calling it a treaty, but calling it an accord instead. However, it is still binding because the U.S. is a signatory member of the World Health Organization. Unbeknownst to the public, the Biden administration has already covertly, that word is very important there, covertly. Anything done in secret is witchcraft. I'm just going to stop there and make that statement. Witchcraft is operating by any spirit that is opposite of the Holy Spirit. Unbeknownst to the public, the Biden administration has been covertly involved in assisting the World Health Organization to clear any remaining hurdles that it will face. For example, Biden's Health and Human Services Department secretly submitted proposed amendments, strengthen WHO preparedness for and response to health emergencies, to the WHO in order to reform international health regulations of 2005, an existing health treaty. In fact, negotiations between HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra and Tedros, and I cannot pronounce his last name, Ghebreyesus, spawned what is called a zero draft of a pandemic treaty. It is this draft, first published on February the 1st, that, subject to changes, will be up for ratification by the 194 WHO member states. In other words, this accord already has the backing of the current U.S. administration. What, if anything, can we do about these developments? First, first we must be informed. Former Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann was present on location at the World Health Assembly in Geneva and was able to provide a play-by-play of what took place at that meeting. All right. Second, contact your member of the House of Representatives and your 2 senators and tell them to keep the U.S. out of the World Health Organization's pandemic accord. By the way, President Trump had already pulled us out of the World Health Organization. In order to do this, the U.S. may need to withdraw its membership from the World Health Organization under Biden. In fact, this would be the best outcome. Given the World Health Organization's nefarious plans and manipulations, we should have no further dealings with this organization. Ask the congresspersons to let the Biden administration know that the American people do not want to surrender our sovereignty to any organization outside of our country. Third, quickly pass this information on to as many fellow citizens as possible and urge them to do the same. Time is of the essence. All right, now, the economic impetus is talked about here. The World Health Organization, in close collaboration with the World Economic Forum, now that's very pivotal, and its climate change elite, and with the backing of the most influential global banking/financial institutions, is literally forming a dictatorial world government right under our noses. They are doing so with very little resistance because they're keeping the information under wraps right now. All that needs to happen for them to successfully implement their agenda is for the circumstances to be made just right for introducing the new way of doing things to the public. In order for people to embrace the global socialist agenda as something that is necessary, the conditions surrounding our daily lives must be continually manipulated to where we will accept drastic changes rather than face the seemingly worse alternatives. This conditioning is underway. The World Health Organization is planning a simulation exercise this fall to make sure that when the next health crisis arises or occurs, they will be able to move quickly to shut things down and force their agenda upon us. Any additional simultaneously occurring crises would serve to further facilitate their push into a new world order. Moving in tandem with the World Health Organization is a global economic agenda. Barring a miracle, the United States and most other countries will soon be switching to electronic, cashless currency systems. Here in the U.S., a central bank digital currency might well become a reality during the Biden administration. The final piece for such a digital system will be in place by the end of July. It's called the FedNow program, and it will provide the necessary electronic infrastructure to accommodate every individual in the U.S. to conduct all financial transactions without the use of physical cash. Once this new system is fully activated, which could be any time after July, it will enable the powers that be to track our every expenditure and move, representing a complete loss of personal privacy. This has always been a concern of mine. It will be a form of enslavement with the ruling government and central bank being able to micromanage our lives, rewarding or punishing us based upon our adherence to the ESG standards, which will be closely tracked and evaluated through a social credit score system similar to that of China's. If you use more than your allotted amount of gasoline or electricity, you will be penalized in the name of saving the environment. If you refuse the next pandemic vaccine, you will be in direct defiance of the WHO's mandates and will be viewed as being a threat to the health of other people and the planet as a whole. You will be financially penalized or worse. Under the new system that globalists want to thrust upon us, they would be able to turn off the financial spigot whenever they choose if we do not comply with their mandates. I'm going to skip down here and read just a little bit more to you. The U.S. presents a unique challenge for global planners, as we have a history of being a fiercely independent and freedom-loving people. Because of this, globalists may take more unorthodox measures to get the job done here. Exactly how they introduce the CBDC and move us into a cashless system remains to be seen. Will it involve a gradual rollout where private institutions first offer special incentives to get citizens to switch over, or will it be a sudden, forceful implementation using draconian measures from the get-go? The authorities may tolerate the use of some physical cash for a time in order not to upset the apple cart, while gradually phasing it out, or they may move swiftly and harshly so that a citizenry that is suspicious doesn't have time to react. The latter scenario, it seems, would require a major economic crisis in order to make an effective appeal to the public for the sudden overhaul of the current financial system. Such a crisis would lead likely to a further, more drastic devaluation of the U.S. dollar, which is already in jeopardy of losing its reserve currency status. The ramifications for the U.S. and the rest of the world in terms of global leadership and influence would be huge. Among other things, the cost of living for Americans and our closest allies, whose currencies are pegged to the dollar, would soar. Now is the time to prayerfully assess your personal financial situation. Act in accordance with God's leading, as every person's situation is different. Generally speaking, we should strive to be in a position of least dependency upon the government. Bartering vital goods and services with trusted friends and neighbors will be key. When difficult times come, I believe the Lord will work amazing feats through the creativity He instills in His kids. But we must be in tune with His Spirit to move and act accordingly. Another incentive for the acceptance of a new world order is the hunger that everyone has for world peace. By stoking the flames of fire, globalists seek to manipulate public thinking to the point where humans will accept any new system. What does it say in the Bible? It says peace, peace. Accept any new system that promises peace. If the world was already in a state of relative peace, there would be no reason for people to accept radical change, since everything would be fine as it is. Thus, from the viewpoint of these global deceivers, this must change. The threat of world war and the possibility of human extinction must be etched into the human psyche. A military crisis of staggering proportions must be created in order to push their one world agenda over the top. All right. I thought that you would find that very, very helpful and interesting. And I have an address for the ministry of Gary Kaw, which I'd like for you to have. And the ministry is called, you can write to Hope for the World, P.O. Box 899, Noblesville, Indiana, 46061, 089 888-888-9899 in the United States of America. And I'll repeat this at the end of the program, so if you don't have an access to a pen and a paper, run to get you one, and then at the end of the program you'll have a chance to write this address down. Gary Kaw has an outstanding, excellent newsletter that keeps us up with everything that's going on the world scene. All right, well, of course, we know that a one world government is coming. We can see all the signs. Daniel 7:23-24 says, "Thus he saith, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all the kingdoms, other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, break it in pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom shall 10 kings arise." We know that. We've gone through that on previous programs. "And another one shall arise after them. That other horn will be called the little horn, and he will be the 11th horn. And he shall be diverse from the former, and he shall put down or overcome 3 kings, and the other 7 will give their authority to him rather than get overthrown like the first 3 were." All right. Now, the old Roman Empire eventually splits into an east-west division. We talk about the east and the west all the time. The Eastern Division, now centered in Russia, is along with the former Soviet bloc of nations and other nations, while the Western balance of power is with the democracies. This East-West division will give way to a one world government. All right, we've been talking about Ezekiel 38. The Eastern balance of power will collapse with Russia and her Islamic allies on the mountains of Israel. With this defeat of Russia, which, take a look at the news right now, look what's happening with Russia and its leader right now. With the defeat of Russia, this Gog and Magog war, which will be defeated, will open the way for a European leader to rise up out of the vacuum. And we know that he will come to Europe. So he'll have to have a little bit of time there to rise up. And he will be called the Antichrist. Now, in my opinion, this is how I see it as I study the Bible. And there are several different people who teach differently about how this is going to handle it, but upon my studies, this is how I see it. In the interim, between the Gog and Magog war and the Antichrist rising up to sign with Israel for 7 years, there will be a space of time. I don't know how long it will last. It won't last really long, but it will last during this interim between the Gog and Magog war and the Antichrist rising up. I don't know how long it'll last, as I said, but God will do a move of His Holy Spirit during this time, getting those who are preparing for the rapture prepared. We see this in Joel chapter 2, starting with verse 28. All right, I'm going to read that to you. This is Joel chapter 2, verse 28, which we have gone over before, and it shows you that this, what I'm getting ready to read to you, will happen before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. And that's the 7 years of tribulation. That's this great and terrible day of the Lord. Verse 28 says, "It shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh." Now this is all flesh. This is not just the Jewish people. "I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy." And the word prophesy there means preach. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And we are seeing reports of an outbreak of the Holy Spirit. Even in Iran, they have a tremendous move of God going on. The underground church in China is experiencing great things. All right, verse 29 of Joel 2 says, and also upon the servants, that's people who serve the Lord, also upon the servants and upon the handmaidens in those days I will pour out my Spirit. I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood. Listen to this, very important here. Before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved, shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. I think I told you in a previous program that I had a rabbi. Well, actually he believes in Jesus, but he calls himself a rabbi. And he says that people that turn to the Lord and go up in the rapture, he said that was anti-Semitic teaching from the Bible. And I asked him, I said, why do you call it anti-Semitic? He said, because the Jewish people will be left behind and only the church will go up. And I said, well, all Jewish people who believe in Jesus will be going up because they're part of the church. All right, so this last verse of Joel chapter 2, verse 32, says that there shall be those who escape in Israel. There will be Jewish people who will be delivered in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem. There shall be those who escape. The escape is the rapture of the church. Now, we've already seen that there's been changes in the sun and the moon and the stars, and this is stated to happen before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. And notice that the two verse 28 and verse 29 state that before the great and terrible day of the Lord come, God will pour his Spirit out on all flesh. Your son and your daughter shall prophesy. And I could state that that is happening right at the very moment that we exist, and it's going to increase as we get toward the rapture. All right. Well, I thought that you would enjoy this. This is how I piece the puzzle pieces together. I am saying that things are coming together very quickly now, and in programs following, we'll talk about what happens to people who are raptured up and also what happens to those who are left behind. So plan to be with me as we go along on these programs on the Voice of Rejoicing. Plan to be with me, won't you?